Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Washington Weekly Update. I'm Don Cravins, Jr., Senior Vice President for Policy and Executive Director of the Washington Bureau of the National Urban League. It's so good to be back with you this week. Hope you're having a great week thus far. Wanted to bring your top 5 things that you need to know for this week here in Washington, D.C. Well, if you're paying attention to the presidential election, you see that in New Hampshire, they are definitely feeling the burn. And of course, I'm referring to Senator Sanders, Bernie Sanders, who took an overwhelming lead in New Hampshire. The votes are still being counted as of today and the time of this taping. But it looks like Senator Sanders is going to have a very, very strong lead coming out of New Hampshire. Makes sense. New Hampshire is a state that's very, very close to his home state of Vermont. And we knew going early, and the polls were showing that he was going to win. On the Republican side, Mr. Trump, businessman Trump, had a very, very strong win as well. He captured 35% of the vote as it stands now. And so what you did see, though, that the establishment Republicans, those Republicans like Senator Cruz and former Governor Bush and Senator Rubio, they are still having a tough time breaking through as establishment candidates. And so actually, the former governor, Kasich, finished number 2 and in New Hampshire. And so that was an interesting win for him. So I think what you'll see that candidates will continue to stay in the race. We're hearing that maybe Dr. Carson may drop out. But right now, it looks like all of these other candidates are headed to South Carolina, which is the next primary, a southern state. So the dynamics will change a little bit. And it'll be interesting to see how the presidential race continues to shake up. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that are going on Capitol Hill. This morning, I had the opportunity to participate in a forum which was presented to Senate Democrats, the Senate Democratic Caucus, and it was on criminal justice reform. And the big issue before the Senate and the House right now is the issue of mass incarceration and mandatory sentencing, which, as you know, has had just a very terrible, disproportionate impact on Black and brown communities all over America. And so I'm happy to see, and the Urban League is very happy to see, that both House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans, are talking about passing a bill that would reduce mandatory minimums for certain crimes, would hopefully allow people to get out of prison who have been in prison for years and years and years for very small crimes. And so we're hoping that Congress is going to do the right thing and pass a bill that actually does benefit those communities, the Black and brown communities. However, the Urban League wants Congress to do it and to do it smartly and to do it based upon information and facts. We don't want Congress to unintentionally contribute to more racial disparity by passing a bad bill. And so we're going to continue to work with Congress and continue to work with the leadership on the judiciary committees and hope and pray that we can get a sentencing reform bill passed in this election year. Last week we talked about February being Black History Month. We will continue to talk about the great things, the great stories about Black history. We talk about historical events that occurred many, many years ago, but we also talk about Black history that's being made right now. And in this week's update, you'll see a story on Valerie Daniels Carter. She's a Black female business owner who broke the cement ceiling, not just the glass ceiling. This woman broke the cement ceiling by becoming one of the country's most successful franchise owners in history. She owns a company called V&J Holding Companies. And so see more about her story in the update. She's truly an inspiration to all Americans, to African Americans, and to our women African Americans. So please see that wonderful story. We also have a Bureau update, which talks a little bit about comments that the National Urban League provided to the Department of Labor on the underrepresentation of African Americans in the apprenticeship programs that many trades participate in. And so that's part of our commitment to make sure that African Americans are have access to opportunities and to diversity. So see that in our Bureau Update section of our Washington Weekly. And then last but not least, at number 5, we're going to be talking a little bit again about Flint and the issues that people are having in Flint. We have a guest column. It's provided by our fellow Christopher Howard. He's going to be our guest author in this week's Washington Update, and he's going to talk to you about the conversation about the water crisis in Flint. He's going to give you some historical significance about the infrastructure in many of our urban areas. We also talk about the work that our National Urban League board member, Jim Richardson, is doing in Flint as well. And so please read that article. It gives you a history of disease, on unsanitary living conditions in the U.S., the issues that they're having in Flint, as terrible as they are, and we are working hard to help fix those issues, are issues that exist in many urban areas in America. And our job at the Urban League is to fix those issues wherever they may exist. Well, that's your top 5 things you need to know for this week. Thank you so much for what you do in and for the movement. My name is Don Cravins. I'll see you next week.